why are these vulnerabilities really important, right? So, why do consumers and developers need to know about these vulnerabilities?
What happens is that you have this phone and you are entering your login credentials or doing a number of stuff on your phone. The attackers, again, they are very smart. So what they will do is they will completely reverse engineer your APK application, and then they will read the code. Boom, they are into your application. They can do a number of things.
Do not install apps.
Yeah.
Get the APKs and reverse engineer. It's illegal to do that.
Sensitive information such as passwords, tokens or personal PI information is logged by the application. The developer has stored these hard-coded credentials because whenever there's something wrong with the application, he is going to log into it.
Hey guys, welcome to another fantastic podcast. We're going to be talking about mastering Android security, and we have one of our, best mobile app pen testers, Tarak Shakardande. I'll just briefly introduce myself. My name is Karan. I am the CEO and Technical Director at Redfox Security. What we pretty much do is pen testing, hardcore pen testing, right from AppSec to infrastructure to red teaming, you name it, right? We also do a lot of podcasts. If you guys haven't subscribed to our channel, please subscribe to our channel. There's a lot of hard work going on. We have a wonderful motion graphics team. They're continuously working hard behind the scenes to get you the best content out there, right? We also train at conferences, guys. So stay tuned. Look at, follow us on, on various channels. You'll get to know what we are doing. We are pushing in a lot of content on LinkedIn as well. So please follow us here. Also, do check out our, Bob Suite checklist, playlist, sorry, and other playlist on YouTube. There's a lot of good content out there. And if you're learning stuff, I would highly recommend that you, kind of go in and explore yourself out there, right? We also have our academy channel where we are pumping out courses. You'll get to learn a lot of stuff at a very affordable price, because, what we are teaching is what we are doing, right, Tarak? Yeah. So with that, I'll actually pass on the mic to Tarak. He'll briefly introduce himself and then we'll just get kick-started. Yeah, Tarak.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hello audience, this is Tarak Shakardande. I work as a security consultant at Redfox Security, and today's podcast is about mastering Android security, and we are going to walk through a lot of things, right from understanding these vulnerabilities. And the best part about this podcast is not something theoretical or just, it's not just letting you guys know about what these vulnerabilities are, but we actually have the practical demonstration as well. So it's gonna be a fun ride. So let's just
Okay, before we start off, Tarak, you want to talk about the disclaimer?
Yeah, sure. I would really like to talk about the disclaimer. So do understand all of the content and all of these practical steps that are shown in the videos in this podcast, are solely for educational purposes. Please do not try this at your home, organization, or any other place, because if in case you get into any trouble, Redfox Security is not responsible for it.
Fantastic. Okay, so before we actually dive in, let's actually talk about, what the agenda is, right? So what are the main topics we're going to be covering
Okay,
here?
sure. So today's, you can have the agenda for today. So we are going to first understand all of these Android vulnerabilities. Then we are going to talk about some common ones, that is hard-coded credentials, insecure logging, insecure data storage, SSL pinning bypasses, and also we are going to discuss the mitigations and detection parts of these things. And again, the main thing that everyone's always waiting for, practical demonstrations.
Yeah, that is the fantastic part about our podcast. We actually really dive deep in and we are making the audience understand. Yeah. Actually, no one else is doing this in this space. So this is kind of like a one-on-one podcast where we are going through the practicals and we are kind of releasing a lot of free content, guys. So please subscribe to our channel. There's a lot of hard work. It's not easy to carry out podcasts, guys. So Tarak, before we jump into the details, why are these vulnerabilities really important, right? So, why do consumers and developers need to know about these vulnerabilities?
Oh, okay. So it's like, see, when you're a consumer, so a lot of people now have mobile devices, especially Android. So what happens is that you have this phone and you are entering your login credentials, or doing a number of stuff on your phone. And again, for the developers, they are developing applications. So what we are going to do, so a lot of times you have heard on the news like hackers are stealing your data and stuff like that. So we are exactly going to show you. So we are security consultants. We are not hackers, but we are exactly going to tell you how all of these things occur and what exactly things and stuff are happening on the back end. Yeah. So that's like, yeah.
So again, this is not made up stuff. This is, we are researching, we are coming up with, a lot of research content here. We do this day in and day out, actually, right? So let's move on. Yeah. To the next one.
Yes.
What are some of the, can we actually move a bit more in depth into what these vulnerabilities are about?
Sure.
And then, we can then break it down and then move into each one.
All right. Surely.
More deeper.
Surely, yeah. Okay. So first vulnerability that we are going to talk about is hard-coded credentials. Now, when you look at the slide and you're thinking of hard-coded credentials, it's like credentials being there in the backend of the application or in the code, I must say. So you can see that it's basically storing sensitive information such as API keys, passwords, or tokens directly into the app source code. Now, what happens is that the attackers, again, they are very smart. So what they will do is they will completely reverse engineer your APK application, and then they will read the code. And basically, if they get any hard-coded creds that are in the code, boom, they are into your application. They can do a number of things. So as the meme says, use real hard-coded credentials in code. My password is dummy pass123. So it's something that is overlooked by developers. So it's a bad developer practice, I must say, because they have these creds embedded in the source code. So best thing, there are a number of ways to exploit it. So again, before we get into the vulnerabilities part, let me tell you that the Android pen testing process is actually divided into two parts. First thing is static analysis, and the second one is dynamic analysis. So in static analysis, what you guys are actually going to do is you are going to reverse engineer the application. You're going to break it down. Then you're going to read through each file, get a lot of insight on the source code part. So more like source code reviewing. And then you are going to use that in order to exploit stuff. But you are not really doing anything on the application yet. So that is static analysis. And dynamic analysis is somewhere where you are going to execute things on the application. So it's basically, these are the two main categories of Android pen testing. So moving back to our vulnerability, that was hard-coded credentials. So there are a number of ways, the automated ones that a lot of people like, but we don't personally, because again, scanners are something that are good as assistants, but that's not something that you should actually rely on. So that's MobSF. Second one is a JADX GUI application. So basically, it's going to convert your APK application, and you will be able to view the source code. Ghidra is the same thing, reverse engineer application. So without any further ado, I think
let's get it.
Yes, because as always, I say, if you it's always the best when you look at the practical demonstrations, because you get more insight as to what exactly is happening. So before we get into the practical, again, I would like to give you a small disclaimer. Do understand that all of this content and videos are made for educational purposes. Please do not try this at your home, work, or organization, because in any case, if you get into trouble, Redfox Security is not responsible for it.
Yeah, and yes, as he said, Tarak very nicely said, do not install apps.
Yeah.
Get the APKs and reverse engineer. It's illegal to do that.
Yeah.
So guys, please don't do this.
Exactly.
We're going to be teaching you how to do a pen test and not actually,
hacking into it. I'm not doing it for malicious purposes, because again, we are all security consultant. We are making sure that we are providing you the best security. We are not hackers again. Yeah. But again, the consumers, they really need to know what's really happening in the backend. So yeah, because you have your phone, you're entering your sensitive information, and boom. Okay, so let's move on to the practical. So first we are going to use the JADX GUI application. So we just going to open it, and then we are going to transfer the APK
question,
file.
can you pause? Yeah. So is it like pre-baked into Kali? Is that application already in Kali, or is it?
No, we have to externally install it. So it's like you can just run a sudo apt install JADX. Yes, that's the command, sudo apt install JADX. And then you will get it. And then you can just use the GUI interface, which I use by just using the Kali search bar.
Got it.
And basically, I'm dropping the APK file onto JADX GUI. And now I'm going to be able to see the source code and what all stuff is really going on in the application. So as you can see that in the source code section, if I navigate to .com, and then to the application, that was the package name, android.insecurebank v2, we will just get into how all of this stuff is being interpreted again when we come to the next vulnerability. So I'm going to give you a small brief about the directory structure as well. So you can see that there are a number of classes actually being used in the by the Android application. That ranges from crypto class, do login, do transfer. So yes, if we go to the next thing, just a sec. Okay, so there are a number of things you can traverse through each during your static analysis part. It's always a great technique to go through all of these classes and try to read the source code. So what we are going to do in this practical is we go to the do login class because it's something related to logging in, right? If you scroll down. Yep. And if you see the 138th line, the function says that if the username equals to dev admin, it's basically getting you to log in through the application, allowing you to log in through the application. So basically what happens in this case, the developer has stored these hard-coded credentials because whenever there's something wrong with the application, he is going to log into it. So that's his username. And now we are going to use this in order to log into the application. This is our vulnerable, again, understand that this is a vulnerable application. And as I told in the disclaimer, all of these things, you should not try this at your home place or with any other app because you need to have legal permissions in order to do the pen test.
Exactly. And so we're going to put the link to, how folks can actually download the APK in the description field. So,
yes,
check out the link in the description field. You'll get to know how to install the APK file and we can do the same steps,
yes.
Right? Yeah.
So let me just set up the IP because the application works on a server on the backend. Once done, let me just check. So we have configured the server successfully and now we can just enter the username, that was devadmin, and we sign in. Now you can see that we have logged into the application without knowing anything about the application, but just the source code. So that was a faulty issue that had been integrated in the app. Yes, moving on to the mitigation part of things, you can see that's always it's sensible again to never hardcode sensitive information in your application source code. Secondly, if you really want to do so, what you can do is you can use the environment variables where you store sensitive information in environment or secure configuration files that are not bundled within the app. And again, if you still want to store it in the source code, which is not really good practice again, but if you want to do it, make sure that it's encrypted because even if someone gets he really doesn't get your actual username and password directly and has to go through a lot of hassle.
Cool. So that's the, fantastic. I think the audience must have gained a lot of information there. That was pretty basic. Now let's move into the next thing, which is insecure logging.
Yes, sure.
Logging. Yeah. How can this be a big issue in Android apps, right? So the same drill here again. Let's talk about what it is. We'll go through the demo and also we'll talk about how to mitigate this issue.
Yes,
right?
surely. So what happens is that whenever, let's give you a small example. So basically first, insecure logging occurs when sensitive information such as passwords, tokens or personal PI information is logged by the application. So logs are often stored in plaintext files, making it easier for attackers to extract valuable data. So it's like whenever you enter your username or a password, it is stored by the application in its logs and the device logs itself. But what we are going to do is the major problem happens is that if your data is visible in clear text, then that's a big issue because the attacker can know that hey, it's just in clear text and he can directly get your data. Again, I said it back as well because encryption is something that is very much important in case you want to store it in your logs. But majorly, if it's a personal information of a user like usernames, emails, credit cards, it should not be in the logs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, there are ways to exploit it. The first thing is ADB. So what we are going to do is basically using ADB logs, ADB logcat command, we are going to read through all the devices logs and then traverse through the whole log structure. I will just help you out with how to do that. And second is pitcat. Pitcat is also convenient with it gives you more of flags with it comes with a bit of coloring grade as well, just so you know what's really going on. Okay, so let's move on to the practical part.
Yeah, before we move on, I just wanted to discuss about our upcoming course, right?
Yeah.
So, Tarak, we are going to be releasing the Android pentesting course. This is just kind of like a recap of what we are going to be actually running through. There's a lot more stuff. I think it's close to 5 hours, right? So there's, that is going to be coming into the market very soon at a very affordable price. We are working really hard behind the scenes, and Tarak is going to be, he's going to be the instructor for that course.
So So always remember, this is a podcast, so we don't have a lot of time because see, Android pentest is huge. So we have to get you, this is like more of a trailer and get you through all of the basics and the main things that are really needed for you in a pentest. So you can also implement all of these vulnerabilities in your pentest as well. So I already discussed it. But if you want to know more about what's going on, you should check out the Android course that we have built on our Redfox at training.redfox.com. It is personally made by me as well, and there are a lot of content that we have offered in that, along with some tips and techniques that you need to use in your pen test.
Cool. Okay. Let's move on to the practicals.
Yes, sure. Okay. So we have your application at the right side, and then at your left side, you have a Kali terminal. So what we are going to do is we are going to run ADB. So before running ADB logcat, let me just tell you what ADB is. So it stands for Android Debug Bridge, and it's basically acts as a communication interface between your application and your Kali machine. So at this point of time, my phone is actually connected with a USB. I have enabled, and again, it's a rooted device. All the practicals that are being performed on a rooted Android device. So at the left side, I have run ADB logcat and I have saved the output in a text file. And in the application, I just enter, being a normal user, I just enter my credentials in. And I click the sign in button, and that's how the normal user is performing his actions. But now what happens is that on the left side of our Kali machine, we have a whole output of all the stuff that was happening in the application in the background. So I'm just going to use mousepad now to open the logs. And one good tip to search for it in your pen test is as well, because there are a lot of lines in a log and you want to check for the specific vulnerability, you can just use the find feature and then look for the password and the entered username. As you can see on the line 1651, you can see that the credentials that was Dinesh and Dinesh @123 are saved in the application, in the logs of the device without any encryption. Yep. Moving on to the mitigations part. Moving on to the mitigations part, you can see that we are sanitized. You always have to sanitize the logs because you have to ensure that all of this sensitive information should really not be logged in the first place. And that too in clear text. And again, I even said this a while back, if there's really a need to do so, the best practice is to always encrypt the sensitive data. So again, you get the point. It's like you are a consumer, you are entering stuff in the applications. Let's say you are made to install an app and then you're entering the username and the password, and all of this stuff is just transmitted over clear text.
Dangerous, right?
Very dangerous.
Now, it's getting more and more advanced, I would say.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about insecure data storage. Why is it important for pen testers to look into this? And obviously, we'll follow up with a practical session and the mitigation part. Tarak.
Yes, surely. So first of all, before we get into insecure data storage, understand what happens in Android OS. So what's happening is the data is being saved in either shared preferences, external storage, internal storage, or databases. So if the data is actually being stored in the shared preferences folder, and again, if it's not encrypted, it's an issue. So this is very common in pentest that even I have tried and we get it a number of times, because see, the application, what it does is it has to save all of the data at some place. But there are a lot of developers and these applications, they save it in the shared preferences folder. And now I'm just going to give you an overview of the directory structure as well, and using ADB to actually get through these directories. Again, methods to exploit ADB again. So it's just Android debug bridge, and simple words, we are going to use it as a communication interface between the application and your Kali machine. So it's more of getting into the phone's device structure and understanding where the data is actually being saved. Before we get into the practical, let me just tell you one thing. Please do understand that all of these videos and practicals are made for educational purposes. Please do not try this at your home, organization, or work, because in case you get into any issues, Redfox Security is not responsible for it. Yes. Okay, so by this time we have already entered our credentials. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use ADB shell. Now ADB shell is actually to get into your phone. So I'm going to run it as a root user. And I'm going to change the directory to data/data. So now what's going to happen is that all of the package names that are being run in the Android device are going to be displayed. Now again, while pen testing, this is a very important part because you need to know what package name is being used. We already did it in the static analysis part again, but while searching for data storage, this is always a good practice to do in the first place. So we just search for the package name that our application has, which is com.android.insecurebank version 2. So now we are going inside the application. So same thing, we are going to just change our directory to the package name. Now you can see that there are a number of things that are being displayed in front of you inside the application, that is cache, code cache, database, and stereo preferences. So again, I had already given a kind of a spoiler in the theoretical part. That now let's just traverse into the shared preferences folder and check any sensitive information is being stored there. Okay, so we have two files, and that is com.android, and the second one is my shared preferences.xml. Let's just try to cat it and see what exactly is happening. Okay, so here's the thing. So what, by looking at the video, you can see that the application was storing the password and the username in the shared preferences folder. Okay, so by this time we have seen that we had the username and the password that is being stored in the shared preferences folder. So the vulnerability we're talking about was insecure data storage again. So it's not a good practice, but there's one good thing that has been done, by there's some kind of encryption that is being applied to the username and the password. So, but as you can see, if you closely look at it, the first password, it looks like an AI string that is being used. Now, as a pen tester, a lot of time I have seen people, they kind of neglect the static analysis part because it's a bit tiring, because you need to go through all of the source.
Boring.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So a lot of people do neglect it. But again, I'm just going to tell you why static analysis is important, because even in pen test, it's always important to understand how the application works by reading through the source code and then trying to exploit all of these vulnerabilities. So let's just hop into our JADX GUI again. And you can see that there are a number of classes. Let's go to a class named crypto class. Again, in a real world application, things would be different. This is a vulnerable application. This is just getting you to understand how all of this stuff works. And now you can see that the developer has actually stored the key that is being used in order to encrypt the data. This is a super secret key. Well, as funny as it sounds, there are times when developers actually hard code stuff like that. So we are just going to copy this, and then there's just a lot of tools that are available online for decoding AES stuff, AES encrypted stuff. So I'm just going to hop onto one of them. I'm going to copy the string. I'm going to paste it. 256 key size again, and then I'm going to enter the super secret key that I actually got from the source code. Now if I click on decrypt, you can see that now I actually got the password that was being, so the application did two mistakes. First, it actually stored the data in the shared preferences folder. So that was related to insecure data storage. Again, second thing, what they did was they used weak encryption practices, but they really did a good work with the AES encryption, but they actually gave away the key. So that was the issue. And yes, we'll get into the username part, because that actually is being encrypted in base64 format. So you copy the string, you go to this site, that's base64decoder.org. You can also use burp suite for that, it's fine, as per your convenience. We are going to get into burp suite in the next vulnerability. So you can see that the username is actually visible, that is Dinesh. So I just copied an extra string over there, so it's fine, yeah. Now you can see that the username is Dinesh and the password was Dinesh@123. So that is how things are being weakly. So again, you are a consumer, you are doing your work, but again, it's the part of the developer needs to know all of these things, and then you have to make sure that the best practices are actually being implemented. Again, we move on to the encryption part again. So again, mitigation part, I'm so sorry. So first is always encrypt all of the sensitive data before storing it on the device. Then again, secondly, it's like use AES encryption with a secure key, and again, don't give away the key in a hard-coded way. So, and the next thing is, preferably do not try to store it, because as you could see, it was so easily accessible via the directory structure that is being offered in Android. So the best way to do is actually store it in a SQL database, and again, making it more harder for the attackers in order to get into the username passwords of users.
Exactly.
Okay.
Cool.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Tarak.
Yeah.
The next one is actually one of my favorite topics, SSL pinning bypass. Let's start off with what SSL pinning is, and then how do we bypass that, right? So
Sure,
it's always been a mystery in this space.
Yeah.
How do we bypass,
Yeah.
right? So, can you explain to the audience what it is?
Yes.
And then let's go all out.
Surely. So before I will give you a brief description because and again I'm going to give you a practical example as well. But it's a very big topic as well. So I'm not going to get into diagrammatic stuff of
But
it.
it's going to be in the course.
Yes,
right?
It's there in the course. So you can always check out our Android pen testing course. Everything is being laid out about each vulnerability, techniques, tools that you need to use. But again, it's a podcast and we are going to dive into the things that give you the best understanding in the limited amount of time. So SSL pinning, basically it's a security technique used to ensure that an application communicates only with trusted servers by validating their SSL certificates. Now, basically, if you look at the diagram, it's like there's an application and there's the server. So the communication is actually happening with a valid certificate. But what we are going to do as an attacker is we are going to use Frida, that is a toolkit, and we are going to bypass this certificate that was supposed to be used by the application and the server. And we are going to introduce our certificate, that is the burp suit certificate, and we are going to perform a man-in-the-middle attack. So the best thing about it is that if you bypass SSL pinning, you are going to get all of the network requests that are happening between the client and the server. So you get it, client, the server, we are in the middle, now we are burp suit, and now you can intercept all the traffic. Again, I use the word burp suit, and that actually is something that comes handy when you are going to use this we are going to test for its vulnerability. So you please do check out this burp suit course, and you can always check the playlist as well, that is in the description. So do make sure to check it out on burp suit. It's just a go-to tool for pen testers, right? From web to Android, iOS testing, burp suit is always there. Anything related to network, you need to know burp suit. So check out the course. Moving on to SSL pinning bypass again. The methods to exploit. The first thing is using the Frida toolkit. So again, I gave you a brief, but again, I'm going to repeat the same thing. It's like Frida is going to manipulate the certificate in runtime, and basically we are going to bypass the certificate in runtime, and we are going to use our own certificate, which was burp suit certificate, and we are going to use the man-in-the-middle attack. So attackers can inject code or hook SSL functions at runtime. It's the same thing. Moving on to the practical, should we?
Yes, please. That's the most exciting part.
Yeah.
Right? Again, guys, a quick disclaimer before Tarak starts. Guys, just don't go out on, Google Play Store. Download apps, get the APK file, and don't try this out. This is illegal. Just have proper permission before you do this. We are not responsible. The best way to do this is take proper permission from your client or whoever you're testing, and then carry this out.
Yes, absolutely. So just don't install any application from the Play Store and start pen testing. And even if it's for bounty or something like that, please don't do that, and make sure you're always pen testing or doing it on if you have the authorized permissions. So next thing, we are going to basically run a Frida script. So Frida is basically manipulating all the stuff in the application at runtime. Now we are going to use the script. The script is in the description. You can always check it out. And even if you Google Frida, there are a number of things that you could do. It's from root detection, bypass to everything. But again, not everything is going to be covered in this podcast, but it's definitely there in our course. So do check it out. So moving on, basically it's the -f flag stands for the package name, which we got earlier in the directory structure. And then we are going to inject the script, that is SSL Pinning Bypass. That is available on the Frida repo as well. So if you see, when you run this command, your application opens up. And now at this point, the burp suit is already configured in the application. If you want to know more about how to configure burp suit into this app, into your phone, then do check out our video that is available at your YouTube as well, and it's in the course as well there, because there are a number of things that we're already covering, right? From podcasts, videos, blogs. You can also check it out in our blogs as well. So we go to burp suite, and now we'll just try to intercept the traffic, because again, Frida did the work of bypassing the SSL pinning part, which was implemented by the developers. Now the second thing, which was the main purpose, was to intercept the traffic. So if you click on the login button and you intercept it using burp suite, you can see that the username and the password. Again, I would like to repeat this, because when you are a consumer, you are doing this stuff on your phone and you don't actually know what exactly is happening in the network request. So as you can see that the data is actually in plain text here. That was our first check that our SSL pinning bypass is working or not. Okay. So in the application, there is a functionality where you can actually change the password of a user. So we go to that and we enter a password. By this time, you already know that we are going to do something spooky, because again, we are not really, an attacker is not really going to he's going to fiddle around with the data. So he's not really going to change the password of the present account. So if you intercept this change password request, you can see the username is Dinesh, and what you are going to do is change the username to a different one, that is Jack. Now again, if you intercept the request, if you intercept the response of the request, we have done the part of altering things. Let's see our attack was successful or not. As you can see that the server responds with a message that the password change is successful. Again, this was an example of man in the middle attack. Now if you turn intercept off, you go back to the application. And now we are in the application. Now we are going to log in as Jack and using the set password that was test@123. Yep. And that is how you actually use. Now we are into the user account of Jack. We started off with Dinesh. And the best part was we used SSL pinning to we used Frida to bypass the SSL pinning that had been implemented in the application. Then you used it in order to get and inspect the network requests that are being placed in the application. And using that, you basically had a broken access control kind of thing, where you fiddled around with the change password for a functionality network request, changed it to Jack, and you were logged in as another user.
Yep. Probably an ATO, right?
Yes, account takeover, exactly. Yeah. A huge vulnerability.
Fantastic. Okay. So do we have the mitigation?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So moving on to the mitigation part again. So it's like, even you always say this, whenever you are having this approach of pen testing, you always need to know as well how to secure it, because clients, they are not only interested in your pen testing part, you also have to provide them end-to-end solutions as to how to secure stuff that's going on. So again, in SSL pinning, we implement it correctly. So it's like more of ensuring that the correct SSL certificate is pinned and regularly updated. Second thing, what you could do is you could use stuff like ProGuard or DeskGuard. So in basically what they are doing is so what Frida actually does is it has some mechanisms against some certain code that is being hard coded. That is, it fiddles around with it at runtime and it can bypass it. But what ProGuard or DeskGuard do, they actually obfuscate this SSL pinning code, so making it harder for attackers. Again, Frida won't be able to it. So these are some universal scripts.
Cool, excellent. Okay, so I guess this has actually brought us to the end of our podcast. There's actually going to be a fantastic continuation podcast.
Surely.
Where we'll go much more deeper, talking about other topics when it comes to Android pen testing. So a brief recap, what we covered: hard-coded credentials, insecure logging, insecure data storage, and SSL pinning bypass. There's tons and tons of more information. What we would suggest is actually, once you see this video, go deeper into this stuff, research online, think about it, go for like these free apps that are legal to hack.
Yeah.
Try these attacks on those apps, and maybe you can learn some more, right? And research into each and every attack path, right? So, Tarak, before we close, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, surely. So the first point that he said was about researching stuff. But again, there are times where people do not know exactly the path or the methodology. So all of these things are actually covered in our courses because they are made in a way that will make you ready for a pen test environment. So even I have worked on it. So all of these things, if you get confused or you are not able to actually have a path as to what to learn and how to learn, then this is something that really comes in handy. Secondly, again, do understand that all of this stuff that was being put here and was made for educational purposes, and all of these practical videos, do not try this at your home, work or organization, because in case you get into any trouble, Redfox Security is not responsible for it. So again, this you might, there was a lot of things that were being discussed, right? It was starting from the basics. So there are a lots and lots of advanced techniques and tools that we are going to discuss in our next podcast of Android pen testing as well. So be hooked. And yeah, so secondly, there are a lot of courses that are being offered at training.redfoxed.com. It's ranging from web applications, Android, iOS, network security, Active Directory. There's just plethora of stuff that we are putting on. Do check it out. And again, there's YouTube, there's blogs, there's it's too much of information is available there, and it's completely specific and on point.
Yeah, and if you like this video, please subscribe, hit the bell icon. We would love more and more people. If you have any questions, you can put a comment in.
Yes, sure.
One of us will actually come in and help you guys out.
We're always there to help you.
Yeah. So thank you very much for watching this podcast. This is the first part. I think we just discussed we're going to have a second part to this. It's going to be very soon. So stay tuned in. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being patient. We really appreciate your support. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.